Again, my name is Max Villaronga, and I am also a proud member of the African American Credit Union Coalition, the AACUC. I'm also a proud member and director on the board for NELCA, the National Association for Latino Credit Unions and Professionals. I want to start out by thanking the AACUC for this wonderful opportunity to collaborate for Hispanic Heritage Month and with NELCA. Renee has been fantastic. Michelle has been fantastic. Larry Sewell has been fantastic, their chairman. So we just love this partnership. Today, we will be exploring our commitment to change through a dialogue about what the Latinx community is uniquely facing in the United States today. We have brought together some amazing speakers to provide their subject matter expertise, their personal experience, and their regional knowledge. I think you will be very excited to meet these speakers. The opinions expressed in this forum are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the opinions of their employers. Let me start out by introducing Ms. Kenia Calderon Cerón, Client Relations Director at Coopera. As Client Relations Director for Coopera, Kenia partners with credit unions to create and execute strategies to grow membership and connect them with the Hispanic community. Kenia graduated from Drake University with a degree in management and entrepreneurship. As a Salvadoran immigrant, she has been a tireless advocate for Latinos, the undocumented community, and those with deferred action for childhood arrivals status, what many of us know as DACA. I think we can all learn a great deal from her since she has dealt with DACA status herself and can share her story. In 2017, she was named a woman to watch by the Credit Union Times. Kenia, can you wave your hand so everybody knows who you are? Thank you. Luis Pastor first joined Latino Community Credit Union in the year 2000. Under Luis's leadership, LCCU has seen its membership grow to more than 92,000 members, provided more than $900 million in community development financing, and accumulated more than $560 million in assets since its founding, and none of this was through mergers. LCCU has received more than 30 awards for its impacts in the field of community and economic development, social justice, and immigrant integration, including the National Credit Union Foundation's Herb Wegner Memorial Award. In 2015, in recognition of his exceptional leadership skills, Luis was selected by Credit Union Times readers as one of the 64 most influential leaders in the credit union movement for the past 25 years. He is widely recognized as an expert in the field of economic development and has been invited to share his knowledge and experience with communities across the globe. Luis, a native of Spain, has a degree in economics and business administration from La Universidad Complutense, Madrid, Spain, a master's in human resources from Centros de Estudios Financieros in Madrid, Spain, and an MBA from El Instituto de Empresa, Madrid, Spain. Luis, can you wave your hand so everybody can see you? Thank you, Luis. Next, we have Miss Olga Mayoral Wilson, APR and fellow PRSA. Olga is a communications strategist and advisor serving various clients in diversity, equity, and inclusion. She presently engages at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas, in DEI initiatives, where she was previously the senior lecturer. Olga taught upper-level public relations courses to juniors and seniors in the College of Fine Arts and Communications. Prior to that, Wilson was the Executive Vice President and Chief Communication Officer at Doral Financial Corporation. Notably, prior to that, she was the Senior Vice President and Public Relations and Corporate Division Manager of the Banco Popular de Puerto Rico of Popular, Inc., where she led a large department and over a $12 million budget and oversaw the communications for this 12,000 employee organization in Puerto Rico, the United States, the US Virgin Islands, and British Virgin Islands. Olga is the recipient of the Texas State University President's 2018 Excellence in Diversity Faculty Award for exceptional service and commitment to diversity, various AR/PPR Excels Awards, the Francisco Paco Oyer for Creativity Award, and the Puerto Rico Public Relations Professional Association's Professional of the Year Award. Olga earned her Master's of Arts in Strategic Communication from Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas, a Master of Arts in International Studies from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, and a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English and French Literature from the Pontifical Catholic University in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Olga, if you could give everybody a wave, please. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Roberto Coronado. Roberto is a Senior Vice President in charge and Senior Economist of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, El Paso branch. Roberto oversees the law enforcement functions and economic education programs across all offices of the 11th Federal Reserve District. He also has oversight for the El Paso branch, the bank's economic research and outreach functions in West Texas and Southern New Mexico, and he recruits branch board members. Roberto is also a senior economist and member of the regional group of the bank's research department. In that capacity, he provides regional input into the Dallas Fed's monetary policy process and is responsible for monitoring and tracking economic and business activity in West Texas and Southern New Mexico. His research focuses on issues pertaining to the Mexican economy, US-Mexico economic integration, and border issues. Coronado has written articles for various Federal Reserve publications and academic journals in both the United States and Mexico. Coronado serves as a director for the Texas Lyceum and as a member for the Texas 2036, El Paso Collaborative for Academic Excellence, El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and Workforce Solutions Borderplex. He obtained his PhD in economics from the University of Houston and holds a BBA in accounting and economics and an MS in economics from the University of Texas at El Paso. As I think the audience will see, this is an eminently qualified group of people to assemble today to have a great dialogue about unique challenges to this community. So without further ado, I'm going to ask the first question, and I'm going to start with Kenya on this. What challenges are the Latinx community facing in this moment in history? Kenya.
Thank you so much for having me and for the invitation to be with you all on this Friday and to be able to share a little bit about my experience with our community. Know that my perspective comes from, one, being part of the undocumented community, the DACA community. As a Salvadorian national, I also have family members under TPS, so temporary protected status. And I would say one of the challenges that has been discussed before, but it has not been as prominent as it is today, is the uncertainty that I believe that our undocumented community is facing. So just from a personal perspective, we have been in limbo with DACA. So we've heard of DACA in our news since it was rescinded, so in 2017. But even before that, the threat of the program ending was present in our lives. And earlier this year, we were waiting for the Supreme Court decision to come out with their decision on DACA. So at the beginning of the year, I was having conversations with my boss, which some of you may know, Victor Miguel Coro with Coopera. So I was having conversations with Victor about, hey, we need to make a plan if I'm out of status in a couple of months. We need to make a plan for me not to work, to not be able to work legally in the United States again. And so that conversation is probably top of mind for many immigrants in our country. So the level of uncertainty is something that I don't think we were experiencing as much as years prior. You know, the fear that we live with is obviously, it follows us on a daily basis. But I would say within the last few years, it has been something that has caused a great deal of stress in our community. And not just for the undocumented community. I mean, we have Latinx Latinos who have undocumented family members. So they themselves may be U.S. citizens, but their uncertainty is shared with our U.S. citizens as well, just because of everything that our community is dealing with.
Thank you, Kenya. As I mentioned, very powerful perspective. I know that this commitment to change dialogue was started at the advent of this, was an idea between Renee and Michelle and some of the board around the very sad and public death of Mr. George Floyd. And I know that there's the word fear was used by Kenya, and this is a fear that our Black and brown communities are feeling every day. And this is a different perspective on it in terms of even being able to stay in the country that person knows and loves. And so thank you, Kenya, for sharing that. Luis, can you tell us about what challenges you're seeing that the Latinx community is facing in this moment in history?
Yeah, good afternoon, good morning, depending when you're in the country. Saludos from North Carolina. Thank you for the invitation. The first idea is that being Latino means so many different things in different parts of the country, different life experiences. It's not the same being from Miami, where probably you're Cubano. It's not the same from New York, where you are Puerto Rican or New Yorican, or it's not the same being from the island or being from El Paso, Texas, where you have been there probably before you never crossed the border crossed you. Or you are just a recent immigrant, and even after 20 years, I still consider a recent immigrant myself. So the crises are exactly the same that the rest of the country is living right now. We're in the middle of a political crisis. The country is completely divided. We're in an economic crisis, in a health crisis, in an opportunity crisis. The less access to resources that you have, the harder the crisis hit you. So as individuals, we just live all these situations in a very, very unique way. On top of that, we have a community, not the whole Latino community, but at least a community in our state, North Carolina, probably 50% of our community, that because of the lack of citizenship, we are not supported by any federal program for unemployment. So at some point, all this situation that the country is living is aggravated by the community that is left out of any additional support. Thank God we have credit unions. Thank God we have institutions that understand that we are owned by our own membership, and here we are providing access to loan, providing extension, providing help, showing that somebody really cares about you. And this is the credit union. At least this is our experience with Latino Credit Union, and we have grown another incredible growth during this year. Every time there is a big crisis, we just see a explode in deposits, in members, in people hiding from the fear what is living outside. And with Kenya, with the drama of our dreamers, I'm very happy to say that 25% of our employees are dreamers, and we don't hire people based on they are not dreamers. They are the best. They're the best qualified individuals. They, like Kenya, they are able to speak without any accent in both languages, and all this talent, all this human capacity that the system is ignoring, is neglecting with the immigrant community. Some of us are taking advantage of that. So we can, if all of us, we can understand that that knowing more languages, having more bicultural experiences is never a demeanor for an employee. It's always an advantage. Just getting to know, to connect with more people with more different experiences. So we will be hiring all of our dreamers, and eventually the public pressure, the political pressure will be there to find a final solution for this community and for the rest of the community. And as a credit union, it's not enough to serve the dreamers. If you serve the dreamer, but you forget about el papá y la mamá del dreamer, they're not gonna go with you. So forget that we are just one big community. Maybe different community in different part of the country, but we identify ourselves as a big, large family.
Thank you, Luis. He said, thank God for credit unions, and I'll say thank God for you, Luis, and your laser focus on that community in North Carolina. You are making a really big difference. Now I'll jump over to Miss Olga. If you can talk to us about what challenges the Latinx community is facing in this moment in history from your perspective.
Well, good morning or good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. I love meeting you all through Zoom, our new communication tool. So my ideas, we're living, and the Latinx community is living and experiencing unprecedented times and total disruption as we speak. We, all of us, are learning to deal with the new and the old as we navigate these new waters. It's really an environment of crisis. That's how I call it. In public relations, which is my expertise for many years and my passion in life, we approach each crisis in a formula, and we do research, then action, communication, and evaluation. Of course, the strategy is in there. In the last 8 months period, I believe that the Latinx community has been able to collect a lot of research, both formal and informal, facts, feelings, personal experiences, perceptions about the situation in their own surroundings, and even personal losses. A reset button, I would say, perfect or not, has been set to stay the course and move forward every day because life keeps on going. And I believe that acceptance of this new reality with its challenges is a must if we all want to survive the crisis. Those challenges are many, starting with personal impact, uncertainty, fear, as we have mentioned here, Kenya, unemployment, health conditions, separation from loved ones, lack of touch because we cannot hug and we're big huggers. So the COVID has really magnified the nationwide polarization, hate groups, open racism, and implicit bias. However, that reset button, is activated. I have observed in the last few months and most recently in the last week, intention and purpose to reach potential solutions from the Latinx community. Just this week, at the very first virtual conference of the Public Relations Society of America, I witnessed young Latinx college students and young professionals whose passion-filled efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives are leading to counter and challenge that disruption. The Latinx students from Hispanic serving institutions, known as HIS, and historically Black colleges and universities, the HBCU, and the young pros in the field of public relations and communications understand the challenges. They are using their own voices to keep moving towards improvement in diversity. Some of their initiatives, and we just saw them this last week coming to life, are mentoring programs, pairing students, faculty, and seasoned professionals. That's where we all come in. We can be all of that to them. Scholarships, endowments. There was a concert fundraiser, and they raised over $50,000 for that endowment for minorities and Latinx. Creation of communication toolkits. We have that. professional organization official statement on diversity and inclusion was just approved in June, just as recent as that. And the diversity and inclusion strategic plan was accepted at the organization level. So I see lots of challenges, but I see what's going to happen at the end because I believe in them.
Thank you, Olguita. And I will say I want that reset button myself. I think a lot of us here probably not if they wish they had a reset button for maybe the entire year 2020. But we'll have to keep enduring, and I'd love to hear from Dr. Coronado, Roberto, if you don't mind jumping in here and giving us your perspective on this moment in history and the challenges to the Latinx community.
Absolutely, Max, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And it's good to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Max. Thanks for hosting and facilitating conversation and to the organizing that both organizations were putting this event together. Thanks for the opportunity. I would echo a lot of what we've already heard. You know, for me, I think as a Latinx community, we've made substantial progress in the last several years, but I feel more progress needs to take place. To me, it's around two areas. It's access, what I like to describe as access and exposure. So what do I mean by access? We need to make sure we have a more inclusive economy. And we were doing a phenomenal job, but you know, the pandemic and the recession came along, and that has actually created sort of this type of trend. And by exposure, what I mean is we need to have a seat at the table. We need to make sure that we do everything we can to have a seat at the table. I think the fundamental issues there probably are revolve around educational attainment, perhaps immigration policy, but we need to have more Latinx members in senior management, members of in corporate America, public leadership positions. And at the end of the day, it's an entire ecosystem of socioeconomic deficiencies and gaps that we got to address and work collectively to do something about that. I think the power begins with all of us. I think all of us, and Olga alluded to some of this, is we can be leaders. We should be leaders. We should be role models. We should be mentors. We should help people come along the way. For those of us who might be two or three steps ahead of someone behind us, we need to extend the hand and help them navigate along with us. But let's be honest, I believe we have quite a bit of headwinds in front of us. When you think about in the last 2 or 3 years, there's a lot of, unfortunately, very sadly, a lot of anti-immigration sentiment in America. And just one example locally here for us, Max, the events that happened last summer in El Paso, you know, the mass shooting, which is just terrific events that we need to come grips with and do something about it. We need to change the narrative in America, the perception of our community, and it starts with us. And so events like this will help us do that. The other big headwind that I see today, and especially since COVID and the recession, is that, you know, our communities, the Latinx, the Black communities, have disproportionately more impacted by the pandemic on the economic front and on the first responders front. If you think about Latinx community, we're the first responders in COVID. We're the nurses, we're the police officers, we're the restaurant workers, the grocery workers, the teachers, the daycare providers, the cleaning and sanitation crews. So we are at the forefront of facing the pandemic. And well, we go and do that with all the honor and privilege of doing it, but that's gonna come with a substantial toll for our community, and we'll have to figure out how do we help mitigate a lot of those issues. So I'll stop there, and I'm sure we can go into more detail during the next few rounds of questions, Max. But again, thanks for the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you, Roberto. Absolutely, and I'm so glad that Roberto didn't stay silent about the violence against the Latino community. And just approximately 13 months ago, a man from Dallas drove in a car with firearms and walked into a Walmart in that community, in this community, because I'm in El Paso. And because he was targeting specifically Latinos, he began to shoot people in a Walmart. That kind of just brazen racism is the kind of thing that drives fear. And Roberto said it, a seat at the table is necessary at every level for all of the underserved and underrepresented communities in America in order to drive positive change. I'm going to get really specific here. This next question will go to Luis, is what obstacles are Latinx leaders or future leaders facing that may not be obvious to others outside of the Latinx community? Luis.
My experience is in North Carolina, the Deep South. So probably something that I suppose most of you are gonna relate very easy, and it will be very easy to understand. For 400 years, there has been a tension between the Black and white community in North Carolina. And suddenly in the last 20 years, there is a different group that come here with a different language, with a different approach, and in few years, we became 10% of the population. In cities, we are 15% of the population. And there is a lack of knowledge of what to do, how to deal with this additional group. On the other side, you start seeing these leaders that start coming. And I mean, credit unions, leaders, and when you don't see anybody that looks like you, that speaks like you, that thinks like you have this lack of role models. You don't, I suppose that all of you have these experiences. You go to these meetings and you don't fit with anybody. And you are not invited to sit in any table in the breakout sessions because you don't fit with anybody, because you don't have mentors, you don't have, people is very polite and people just say hello to you, but they didn't go beyond and ask, how's your family? How do you feel? Because we are very polite, but we don't cross this line. So in order to grow, in order to now that we are talking diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have been living all these things for all our lives. So, and suddenly our white friends and brothers, they have discovered that this is so good to say diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we are gonna become the experts, and we are the experts. We are the experts because we have been playing in the outside field for all our lives. And they start appreciating you and say, oh, Latino Credit Union, what a big high growth for a Latino credit union. Because you're never good enough, because you need to prove, as immigrants, we know that, you need to work out to receive half. It's the same with leadership. It's the same, and yes, and they invite you and they call you and say, you know, I need a Latino for my board of directors. Many times I say, and what do you want this person to do? It doesn't matter, I need a Latino. And the answer is, I'm sorry, I cannot say that in public, but you start with F. So all these things that we have lived all our lives, at some point we need to say enough is enough. If you invite me just to be another chair in your table, but there is never the expectation that at some point my voice is gonna be so relevant that I'm gonna be able to show you that the way that we are doing things, it's much more relevant, important than the way that you have been doing things for so long and have let so many people left out. I don't wanna be at these tables. I don't wanna keep losing my time because I have so many other people to keep serving at the credit union. So the big challenge with the leaders in the Latino community is that we're not invited, we don't count, I'm talking, this is not Texas, this is not California, this is not New York, this is North Carolina. They don't even know how to say our names. The people is confused because we have two last names, and even the DMV, they don't know how to deal with us because we have two last names. Yeah, because we honor our mothers and our parents, and we have all that together. Our culture means that we don't disappear, we don't integrate, we don't belong to our husbands. We just have our own identity. All these things that is so easy to understand for us, if you don't know, and if you don't speak up, if you don't challenge the system, if you don't, to make omelets, you need to break eggs. So sometimes you need to look mad and you need to show them that you don't want to be in a table, in a room, when people don't understand, don't respect you for the right reason. Because yes, we know how to do things. Sometimes we have something to learn, but you know what? At some point we have something to teach as well. And we are ready to do that. So you can keep inviting, if you want to develop Latino leaders, start hiring Latinos. Start putting people in positions where they can really show and prove that we have something to say, because we can speak with an accent, but we don't think with accents. So we know what we want. We want what our community needs, because we are part of this community. Leadership is not like mushrooms. It's not gonna grow alone. We need an environment that can really nurture culture, support this community. But if you don't have the first person to hire the second one, that's never gonna happen. So I will invite you to see, I'm so tired of listening, oh, you know what, I have a coworker that is Latino, and 90% of the time is the receptionist. I'm tired of listening to this stupidity. I'm tired of just thinking that we celebrate Cinco de Mayo. We don't celebrate Cinco de Mayo. We don't understand that we need to move beyond all this stupidity, because we're individuals and we are leaders and we are talented people with an accent, but with a lot of talent.
Thank you, Luis. Now you know why we invite Luis. He brings the passion, and I think there were like 6 bumper stickers in there that would have been absolutely awesome. One of my favorites was, "My voice is relevant." Powerful, powerful. And I may speak with an accent, but I don't think with an accent. Wow. Thank you, Luis. Thank you. Olga, can you talk about some of the specifics that Latino leaders and future leaders, the challenges that they may deal with?
Definitely. And talking about accents, with my name, Olga, anywhere I go, they try to put me someplace, you know. Usually they say, oh, you must be Russian. So, you know, you get everything, you get everything. But coming back to the question about the obstacles, that definitely there are so many. I answered this question with 2 questions. What do we need to learn, and what do we need to do? Luis has answered so many of them, but the fact that we need to learn how other people think in order to reach out to them. You know, we need to be able to say, okay, if I'm going to integrate and I'm going to have that seat at the table, which is most needed, okay, I need to see where are they standing so that I can prepare myself and I can offer anything that they need, because I can. So there is a form of self-studying, and I see this across, you know, all communities. They all need to look into them and see that. I know that with these elections, this political environment is really one of fear. Places where you felt comfortable, you don't now. In the classroom, for example, when I was teaching DACA, you know, the dreamers, I saw them by myself. Of course, because we're Latin, we're warmer and we're touchy-touchy, as we say, but we cannot do that because then it could be misinterpreted. But the students, you have to make them feel that they have a safe place where those difficult conversations can take place, where they can ask anything, and it's okay to ask about it. They need that support from you. I think that the implicit bias is rampant, and some people don't even know that they have implicit bias because, you know, there are so many different and small things to talk about that. The increased technology in these days, as we are together today, I think is going to be obstacle for many of our Latinx. I need to know more how we can help them and how we can all be part of the solution for them, so that they will be in Wi-Fi areas where everything, they have the access to hotspots and they have the equipment. I believe that because of the Latinx community disparity, there may be a lot of lack on technology that could help them move ahead.
Thank you, Olga. So, you know, we talked about accents, we talked about language, we talked about our voice maybe not being considered relevant at times. You talked about access to technology and obviously this all-encompassing fear that seems to be encompassing society. Thank you for sharing that. Roberto, what are you seeing in terms of these specific challenges to the community?
Yes, so I would start, Marks, with what can we do? You know, what the call to action to all of us in the Latin community or in the Black community or any minority communities, I would like for us to, and I can speak for myself here, right, is I believe that we should be able to set ourselves the limitations. We are the ones who oftentimes set the parameters and perhaps don't set high expectations, high aspirations, high goals. We oftentimes, I'll speak for myself, you know, we struggle believing in ourselves. And oftentimes we don't ask for help. So if we can start changing our mindsets, I think that's probably the first step that I would encourage us to do so. But then also let's be honest. And I had this aha moment 2 or 3 years ago as we were going through talent calibration and succession planning that, you know, quite frankly, there's a lot of awareness, lack of awareness of our culture and traditions. And that's oftentimes, it's a limitation for us to be seen differently. So what do I mean by this? Many of us are raised to be humble and community oriented. There's nothing wrong with that, as opposed to others who are raised to be self-promoting and self-serving. And so then oftentimes we are seeing that we have a seat at the table, but we are quiet, we're not engaged, and therefore people say they are not capable, they are not competent. And that's not the case, that's our culture. And so we need to come grips with it, but we also have to teach others and make them aware as to why we are the way we are. You know, we oftentimes don't know how to advocate for ourselves and struggle to tell our story. Many of us don't follow and don't look for mentors and people for, you know, champions for us to advocate in our companies, in our industries, and we need to be more thoughtful about that. And then the one aspect is that I don't think many people know that many of us, many Hispanics, many Latinx, we have a lot of wider personal responsibilities. We have multi-generational households. So you may have 2 or 3 kids in the house, you have your parents, you have a cousin, and you are taking care of a lot more than the traditional household in America. And therefore, you are a little bit more distracted at home, at work, because you have a lot of things and a lot of, you know, competing forces for all of us. And so I think if we are able to articulate and tell our story so that others will be aware, then the perception of how we operate in the corporate boardroom and how we operate in our institutions, I think we'll have an opportunity to start changing the lens from which we are looked at and hopefully start making some progress on this space. But I would echo Luis's comments, Olga's comments, and yes, Max, I think I'm probably going to be copyright a few of those bumper stickers here from Luis if he doesn't mind.
I think you'll just ask for some royalties, that's all. But Roberto, thank you for sharing. You know, what a powerful statement. I hope eye-opening for everybody to talk about humility as a cultural feature and how that can backfire when you're in a country where self-promotion, drive is seen as an overarching value. So it can be misconstrued by other parties in the room. And so not having the appropriate mentors for the Latinx community can really create a gap that's very real. So thank you for sharing that, Roberto. Kenya, what is your perspective on these very specific challenges to the Latinx community for leaders and future leaders? You being one of them.
Yeah, so thank you. I'll take a different approach. So when I'm thinking of challenges that our Latinx leaders are facing, I'm going to focus just on Latinas. So yesterday, some of you may already know, yesterday was the Latina Equal Pay Day. So you might have seen on your social media information about the pay gap that exists. So when we look at women we know that women are not being compensated at a similar level as white men are. But when we dive into by ethnicity, Latinas are being the least paid in our group. So Latinas make 54 cents to a white man's dollar. But yesterday I learned that foreign Latinas make 78 cents to a dollar the white men are earning. So when I think of challenges and I think of economic empowerment, we are leaving Latinas behind by a whole lot, just with 38 cents. So if Latinas are having to work 2 to 3 years to make the same amount of money that our white men colleagues are making, that's going to impact not only our economic influence, but it's just going to impact how well we can take care of our families. So when I think of the biggest challenges for Latinx professionals, I really think about pay, because many of us work right in an industry where we're dealing with money on a daily basis. But if a community within our community doesn't have those resources to be successful, it's going to be very hard. So today I encourage you to look at the unemployment rate and dig in deeper. You will find that Latinas, so Latina women, today have the highest unemployment rate across the board. So again, not only are we not compensated well for what we bring to the table, the famous table that we're talking about, but we're also, losing our jobs at a faster rate too. So I think the millennial and Gen Z population, their perspective on the table is that, yes, we can receive an invitation to the table, but if we're not going to be compensated the same way that John Smith is, we might not even come to the table. We might even have to create our own table so that we can be compensated fairly. So I do think that, especially in our industry, we need to keep that top of mind to make sure that we're taking and having conversations about salaries. We need our white colleagues to have conversations about salaries as well. I had a great friend of mine who was supervising an entire team. She is a Latina, had a conversation with her white colleague who was, when we think of titles, she was one below her, and come to find out they're making the same amount of money. And her white colleague was not supervising anybody, whereas my friend had an entire team she was responsible for. So, when we think of pay gap, it might be happening to our own colleagues in our own institutions. So we need to get past that taboo topic and actually be able to improve the lives of Latinas in the United States. We need to start talking about money and the injustice that exists there today.
Well, how demoralizing, Kenya describes doing the same job as somebody else and getting paid a fraction of the amount for the same exact work being done. That's demoralizing. And so in summary, I would say that Kenya just said in the wise words of, show me the money. And I don't know if I need to reach out to your boss, but maybe I'll make a phone call after this. So let's jump over to, let's talk a little bit about immigration policy. And I'm going to be cognizant of the time here. We've only got about 13 more minutes together, and we always start on time and we finish on time in the AACUC and NELCA. So let's talk about how has a change in U.S. immigration, official and the unofficial policy, impacted the Latinx community in your area. If you can go ahead and start with Olga on this one, please.
Okay. Well, the dreamers are the ones that immediately come to mind because they are my students. They were my students. I have seen them come in and out of the classroom, grow, and move forward. But the uncertainty and the fear is what prevails. They cannot concentrate well to study when they are fearing that they are going to be called and told that. They feel for their families because maybe the families have to go away as well. So that is not helping them either to become, better students. So I think that if this is not resolved, it's going to continue affecting them one way or the other. At Texas State, I saw how they have been helping, openly providing spaces, sponsoring organizations, and they have been very, very proactive. We have all been as faculty as well. We are recognizing that they need our help and we need to provide it to them. The tools that we're given as faculty are helping them, particularly now when they are away from the classroom and they have to all be at home. But all of that is part of what is going on over there.
Thank you, Olga. Wow, how traumatizing to be worried about being able to stay in a country at a given time. Roberto, what are your thoughts on this?
So let me stay within the economic realm here, Max, if you don't mind. And I would say, immigration policy, immigration is an economic driver. And I would say if we want to grow the US economy, we have two levers. One, we can be more productive, enhance our productivity levels, or grow the workforce, period. That's it. Either be more productive or grow the workforce. And so immigration, it's a lever and it's a tool that we can help us with the growth in the workforce. And let's face it, our workforce in the US is aging. And so we have a significant challenge there. And the evidence suggests that over the last 2 decades, immigrants and their children accounted for half of the growth in the workforce in America. Half of the growth. Over the next 2 decades, immigrants and their children will account for 100% of the growth in the workforce. So if we want a growing and vibrant economy, we need a growing and vibrant workforce, and immigration is another tool that we need to think about and deploy and strategically utilize, again, from an economic perspective. So I'll stop there.
That's powerful. You heard it from a doctor here that does this for a living. Basically, if I can sum it up, he says it's math. It's math. If we want a growing economy, if we want prosperity in America, we've got to stop looking at these things that are divisive and really look at this is the best thing for all Americans. Thank you, Roberto, for that. Let me jump over to Kenya.
Yeah, as far as immigration goes, if our immigration system was broken before, I would say it has now been burned to the ground and it's just ashes, because if you think about it, within the last few years, so many procedural practices that exist in our justice system was put in place so that if someone was detained, you could have a chance to fight your case and show, I deserve to stay because of X, Y, and Z. But what has happened now is that we have families being torn apart, not just at the border, but also in our own community. So I reside, so Luis, you mentioned that your community is very different because you're in North Carolina. So I'm based out of Iowa. So the Latino community is even like smaller here, but Iowa has a great deal of ICE activities. So ICE is present here. When ICE is present because the word of mouth it travels super fast. So our families are being separated in our own neighborhoods. And before, we believe that they would at least, if you were detained, you would at least have a chance to fight your case. Now, the administration has made it even faster for you to be deported back home. So we had a case here in Iowa. There was a pastor who was undocumented, who had been in the United States for 25 years. And he was not able to fight his case or present to present his case to the judge, because all of the pieces that used to protect us in one way or another has been removed. So when it comes to immigration, know that our families are not just being separated at the border, but they're being separated right next door to us.
Wow. So Kenya describing right in the center of our country, a lack of due process, which is a basic fundamental American value, and something that may not make it into the news every day. Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. And last, certainly not least, Luis, can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in your community?
Yes, we, if you are born here in the United States and you know this economy, this country, you feel that immigrants are willing to come here to take our wealth. And maybe, I don't know, but there is another factor that we cannot forget, that is immigrants is not only the destiny, is the country of origin, where we live in our countries. So the more violence, poverty, insecurity that we have in Central America, in Mexico, in South America, in any country of the world, more people are gonna keep coming to the United States. We have been listening that the number of immigrants has been reduced. I don't know in your communities, but not here. I mean, people keep coming. And people keep trying 1, 2, 3 times to cross because we know what we left behind. We know what we cannot provide for our families back there. So immigrants keep coming. Roberto was mentioning the 2 factors for the labor market. Let me add something, which is, for some people that may sound ridiculous when they see us walking around with our big families, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. That's the future. That's the future. And the future really is gonna be more Garcia than Smith. So because we're gonna keep bringing many more kids that any other community is bringing right now, mainly the white community. The average kids in the white families is 1.6 kids. Latinos is 3.2. That's double. We're gonna keep bringing more and more kids. So immigration, we do something or we do nothing, eventually is gonna change, because all our families are gonna keep growing, and we became part of the essential labor of this country, and we need that. In our credit union, 92,000 members, 90% of our membership was low income when they joined the credit union. So we need to understand that when immigrants come here, it's not just me, or it's not just the highly educated, it's the people that are gonna clean our houses, it's the people that are gonna do the labor work that nobody wants to do. It's the people picking up tomatoes and tobacco and all the things that no American want to do. So that's the future. We want it or not, we sit down to talk or not, it may be faster or slower, but the reality is that the Latino community is here to stay, as has always been here to stay. It's nothing new.
Well, thank you, Luis. Again, continues to be very powerful, talking about families, larger families, 3, 4, 5 kids. I came from a family with 5 kids, so I've had people ask me, what do you think about big families? Well, I'm the 4th kid, so I believe in it, because I wouldn't be around if I believed in only families with 2 kids, right? So that's a powerful message. Just as a final note, we're here in the final 3 minutes. I'm just checking the chat here for any Q&A that may have come through. Some really good comments here about all of the speakers. I'd like to ask if there are any final notes here on what credit unions can do to mitigate these challenges. A real quick speed drill. I'm just going to ask for a couple of people to weigh in if they can just hit those specific bullets. What can credit unions do specific to that? And I'm going to start with Kenya. Maybe a couple of bullet points of what can credit unions do to help.
I'm going to give you one, just to be mindful of time. Credit unions have done a great deal of work to serve the immigrant population. Now it's time to add us to your legislative priorities. Make sure that your leagues include us in your legislative priorities, because we're not only being attacked by the current administrations, and again, it could be from one or the other party. We know that we always have issues with whomever in regards to when it comes to immigration, but there are so many anti-immigrant laws that are passed at a state level that credit unions have a power to advocate against or for, depending on the nature of it. So we need to start thinking about laws because they impact our members. So add the Latinx community to your legislative priorities in 2021. So I'm going to challenge you to do it in 2 months. So you have 2 months to think about it.
So one idea there, political advocacy from Kenya. Roberto, you have maybe one bullet you can give us here at the end?
And this is an area in the credit unions do a phenomenal job, but I think more work needs to be done. Building financial capabilities, doing a lot of work on financial literacy, financial education, economic education. And this is an area in which we partner a lot, the Federal Reserve System, and we love to continue to partner with you. And that's very much needed to build the capabilities and build resiliency within our Latinx community.
Awesome. And Olga, if you've got a quick last final word, we're going to give you the final word before I close it.
Okay, we need, as credit unions, to rethink and reimagine our purpose. You have to look inward. You need to advocate, become a mentor, and become a sponsor of Latinx.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to stop there because we're just about out of time. I want to thank each and every one of our speakers, Olga Mayoral Wilson, Kenya Calderon Zeron, Luis Pastor, that's been absolutely fantastic, and Dr. Roberto Coronado. He had to step away because he is actually right now going to be doing a big presentation for some new police officers because of his role here in this community. I'd like to give a special thanks to Renee Sadie-White with the AACUC. She's absolutely phenomenal to partner with and work with. Michelle Outlaw, which is her right hand and her right hook if we get out of hand. So we love her very much. Larry Sewell, the chairman of the board of the AACUC, for this wonderful opportunity to partner with you. NELCUP is so happy to be great partners with the AACUC. And with that, I don't know if there are any final words administratively, Michelle, that you'd like to say?
Thank you so much, Max. We had a great time. I appreciate it. Great moderator today. So thank you, everyone. It is straight up 2 o'clock, so we will let you go. But again, join us in another 2 weeks. So happy that you are here. Panelists, you are fabulous. Audience, you were great. I appreciate the information that you placed into the chat, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at the next AACUC Commitment to Change Conversation Series. Take care. Have a happy Friday and a better weekend. Bye-bye.